Hello, and welcome to today's conversation about Gabriële with authors Anne and Claire Berest. We are delighted to have you all joining us today at the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library. My name is Jackie Trellis, and I am a member of the programs team here at SNFL. Before we start, I would like to thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for making programs like today's possible. I would also like to remind you that if you don't already have a library card, it is easy to get one by visiting any information desk in this building. Finally, I would like to encourage you to visit NYPL's website and take a look at upcoming 7 Stories Up programs like this one. We have an excellent lineup this season featuring new fiction, nonfiction, music, local history, and more. We would love to have you join us in this space again. And now let me introduce our speakers. Anne Berest's first novel to appear in English, The Postcard, was a national bestseller, a Library Journal, NPR, and Time Best Book of the Year, a Vogue Most Anticipated Book of the Year, and winner of the Choix Goncourt Prize. It was described as stunning by Leslie Comey in The New Yorker, as a powerful literary work by Julia Oringer in the New York Times Book Review, and as intimate, profound, essential in the pages of Elle magazine. Claire Berest is the author of 7 novels and 2 works of nonfiction. Her 2019 bestseller about the painter Frida Kahlo, Rien et Noir, won the Elle Reader's Grand Prize, and a movie adaptation is currently in development by Netflix. Her recent novels include The Thickness of a Hair and Artifices. Anne and Claire will be in conversation with my colleague, NYPL librarian, Allison Ellis. Without further ado, please welcome Anne, Claire, and Allison.
So welcome to our lovely little space.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's such a great honor.
Of course.
We are so happy. Thank you.
And congratulations on the release of Gabriële. It's getting, I don't know if you know this, but it was written up in the New York Times this week, which is incredible, and the Washington Post. So it's getting a lot of excellent attention. I want to start off this discussion by asking you a little bit about the writing and research process for this book, and what was it like to work collaboratively?
Do you want to start? Non, comme tu veux.
Okay,
Tu veux que j'y
okay.
aille?
Yeah,
Je vais expliquer ensemble et que je continue.
I don't know if you understood, but we are sisters. So, how we wrote this book together. Above all, our dream was to write a book together. Because we are sisters and we are both writers. So, just to explain, so Gabriële is a book we wrote before I wrote the postcard. And when we started to write Gabriële, we wrote already, I had published something like 4 books, 3 books, I don't remember.
Yeah,
and
me
you
too.
So it all started with will of working with 4 hands, which was in reality a deep desire to play together, just as when we were kids. And we wanted to travel back to in time to our childhood, to rediscover this joy of playing together and just being the 2 of us and spending hours and hours with our games, our toys, our dolls. And I have to say, because it's amazing to be here in this library, that our favorite game when we were kids was pretending that we were librarians.
True. But she was the boss librarian. I was the assistant, you know.
And all our dolls and how do you say les peluches,
Stuffed animal,
stuffed animals
thank you.
were our readers. And our joy was to write the titles on little papers and to have stamps
Yeah.
to put inside the books. We spend I don't know how many
Hours, days, months to play with that.
Yes. And so years later, we wanted to spend times to write this book, but we needed a topic, and a topic that made sense, something really relatable. And one day, totally by chance, I came across a biography of Marcel Duchamp, the French artist, which you might know because he became very, very famous in the USA. And I started to read it. It was the holidays, it was the summer. I started to read it, and suddenly I discovered that our great-grandmother was in a lot of pages of the book because she was the first love of Marcel Duchamp. And she was his first love when she was married with our great-grandfather. And I discovered in the book that they had like a love triangle, and that and that they made a lot of things together. So I phone called Claire, and I said, Claire, I think we have our topic.
What a hell of a topic. So how did writing this book change the way that you see your family's history?
Maybe to give a little bit of context, Anne recognized the name of our great-grandmother in the book about Marcel Duchamp, but it's all we had about her, a name. That's it. Because our mother, Lélia, that maybe you met in Postcard, the book of Anne, Lélia, she never talked to us about her father or her grandparents. And we had the sense when we were little, like kids, that it was maybe, a secret or something hidden, the skeleton in the closet, the ghosts. And obviously, kids, if there is secrets, they just want to go there, That's why also it was a little bit of a sign when Anne called me and said, I know we are going to write about Gabriële. And it was like obvious because maybe it was a story who was waiting for us somewhere for so long. And it was waiting for us to, go and discover it. And so first thing we had to do was to go like an investigation. Like police officers, like you have to understand the case, you have to take all the pieces together. Marcel Duchamp was one piece, but we had the sense there was so many pieces to started to make a little bit the circle around Gabriële. So that was the first phase of our work, and can we say that at that time, did we feel it was a book about family? I'm not sure, because she was almost a stranger for us, but it was a stranger who was inside our flesh and blood. We can feel she has something to say to us, but also I think we had this approach as a very interesting stranger and character that we want to meet, because maybe she can give us energy and give us ideas. So the first thing with your question about the family is that what we're going to say with our mother, was it betraying her to go find this secret that she was hiding? And we felt that our mother, her first name is Lélia, which means in Hebrew, the night. And maybe we, at this feeling, we have to put light into the night of her life, the life of our mother, to try to us understand, but maybe herself. And in few words, why it was a secret, we kind of understood it, is that Gabriële and Francis Picabia were geniuses. They were monsters also. They were full of shades and full of different energy, and probably they didn't really wanted to have kids, but they had 4, and the fourth was our grandfather, and he committed suicide very young, and so our mother was left alone. And so for her, Gabriële was not someone very interesting. Maybe she was this grandmother who just left her alone and didn't help her. But that was maybe our job, to carry this story of our mother, but to figure out again that Gabriële, who has been almost erased from art history, has so much things to say to us, but maybe to all the persons today. And so that was our fight.
So to piggyback off of something you just said, a lot of this book deals with a lot of erasure and self-erasure in art history. Gabriële has a huge impact in the people around her that are involved in art. Can you talk a little bit about, the process, like not the process, but the concept of erasure and self-erasure when it comes to Gabriële in this book?
I would say, to answer that, this question is large, and I will start with maybe something a little bit uncommon, but I would like to speak about an idea of erasure that concern both men and women, and the erasure of collaborators, sources, people who have influence, muse of artists. Because the truth is that all artists know and will say that they need the help of people around them. All will say that. And in the case of Gabriële, especially with Gabriële, when we read the archives, we could discover that Picabia said she was so important in my painting process. Marcel Duchamp wrote it too. You will have, for example, Guillaume Apollinaire, the French poet, the French writer, who said how important was Gabriële, but also the musician Igor Stravinsky, also very important artists like Alexandre Calder and the sculptor Brancusi. All these artists wrote how important she was. So what happened? I think it's our theory that when art historians wrote the history of art, they shaped an artist, the myth of the artist, as God. It's a man, a white man, he's alone with his ideas, alone with his pencils, and he creates things that came from his brain as magical, and this man doesn't need anybody. That's not the truth. And if you hear artists, that's never what they say. But it's how it was written. And to be fair, that's true that never artists said, maybe historian is not exactly like that. Maybe they were happy to be written as gods.
You know.
So this erasure of collaborators is something that we can discover now and work on it to explain that since centuries, art is a collective work, and that it always has been collective, and especially during these years at the beginning of the 20th century, when all these artists that you will see in the book were working together, loving together, art and life was always the same movement, the same gesture. And in this book, we wanted to say that art is something that you have to make in common.
I could maybe just add maybe two quick things. One thing we felt doing all this research, and it's especially these years, 1910, 1911, 1912, it's very, very important moment in art in Europe, in the US too, because people were just communicating from other countries like German, England, France, Italy, Spain, Americans. They were all friends. They were all, sending their work to one another, and they are having so much projects. Like, you're a photographer, you're a painter, you're a writer, you design clothing. Let's do a gigantic theater play with like all of us. And they're having projects like that all the time. So that's true, they were living together and all that stuff, but throwing these ideas, especially a lot of magazines, they wanted all the time, like, let's create a new magazine, And for example, in New York, very important, the 291, the magazine 291, and then Picabia created 391 because to be close. And they were doing that all the time because magazine, it's what? It's a place where friends can work together. Everybody can write article, can make drawings, you can make funny, cover. And it was really this spirit. And one thing struck us is that, okay, it's like that, it's up and up in those years. And I can't imagine sorry for my English, if World War I wasn't arriving, what art would have been, because it was a moment for art. They were breaking all the rules. They were starting everything all over again. There was futurism in Italy, and Cubism, and the Armory show here in New York. But then the huge, massacre arrived, World War I, and everything stopped. And all these artists who were working together, suddenly there was two sides. The sides for people who want to go to fight in the front, being soldier. All the artists who said, I am anti-militarism, I won't fight, I don't want to be engaged. And all these buddies, all these friends, they are not on the same side, and a lot of them died during the war. And it was a lot of emotions for us that our book took place in this, in a way, lost heaven, lost paradise, because then history and the century will be changed forever. And we know that after that there was World War II. So we know after that we enter a very dark place for a long time. Of course, art is gonna change a lot of things, but this beginning of the century, my God, few years, it was amazing place, and everybody was working together.
As a librarian who also has a background in art history, I'm very obsessed with the bibliography that's in the back of the book. Because I know I was doing a lot of research for this book discussion, and I was like, I'm not really finding anything. Yeah, and I had gone as far as I have a friend that works at the National Gallery in DC, and I was like, what can you find about her? And she's like, not a lot. So I like that in the back of this book, it's not only the supplemental material for this book, but I think if anybody wants to do their own research, kind of expand on, you know, scholarship around her, that there's like a perfect place to start. And thank you as like a librarian. I love it when I can kind of go resource hunting in the back of books. So I think that's incredible. But kind of piggybacking off of that, where do you kind of see Gabriële's role in art history going after the publishing of this book? It has been out in France for a while, but now it's released in English.
Yes, we are in the beginning of the journey, but for example, we were so proud because the mayor of Paris decided that a garden in Paris, a little garden, should have a little park, should have the name of Gabriële Buffet. And it's a little square just near the street Francis Picabia in Paris. So
Sweet.
yeah, so we were so happy. We were with all our family to open this little square, and that's something.
Yeah.
And also a very famous publishing house, little but famous because very good, is working on a book to gather all the articles that Gabriële wrote. And it's thanks to the book. And since we started to work on it, so it was 10 years ago, now I try to find and to buy everything related to Gabriële. So now I have a lot of archives, and I will give them to open them to a university, because now young students want to work on her. And I decided on behalf on the family, on our family, to give money to the students so they can work on Gabriële. So it's not big, but it's a beginning of something for her. And also I wrote a documentary on her, and it was on a French famous channel on TV. So yes, it changed something very important.
I tried tracking down the documentary too, and it's called "The Woman with the Erotic Mind." I think in English
Exactly.
it came out maybe 3 years ago.
Yes, on the chaîne Arte in France, it's a channel very I don't know to say.
Yeah, very
Cultural,
engaged
yes,
and
engaged and cultural channel.
And you didn't find it?
No,
We're gonna send it to you.
Thank
I
you.
will send it to you.
because I feel like I'm pretty good at finding things. I'm a child of the internet, but I was just like, why am I not finding it? It took, and I could only find like the IMDb page, and I wanted to watch it so badly, but I was so excited when I saw there was a documentary about her, which is incredible. So we mentioned it before, but one of the main relationships in this book is the triangle between Francis, Gabriële, and Marcel. What does Gabriële see in Marcel that she does not see in Francis?
It's a very good question, because okay, you have maybe to picture Gabriële and Francis. They are already married, for a few years. They already have kids. They are completely into, you know, the revolution of art and painting. So they are working a lot together. Francis is painting. Gabriële is completely thinking, you know, parallels between music and painting, between notes and colors, and both of them with friends. They are really like committed to create a new way of painting. And one day she meets this young guy, because Duchamp, that is really known in the US, really known, you know, became very famous living in New York. He was not Duchamp at that time. He was really Marcel. You know, he's the young Marcel. He just arrived from a place in France, an area called Normandy. So he arrived with the train. And he arrived because at the capital, in Paris, because his two big brothers are living in Paris. Exactly, they're living just outside of Paris in a small town called Puteaux. And it becomes a little bit of a group for cubism in painting. It's a group, le groupe de Puteaux, the group of Puteaux around the two Duchamp brothers. They call themselves Villon brothers. They changed their name. Part of it because they wanted to say hello to a very interesting French poet called François Villon, so they took the name. Okay, and Duchamp is the baby brother, you know. He just arrived, and he just, you know, walking around, meeting people. And Gabriële, when she sees him, because that's Gabriële's talent, she sees that this guy is so different of everybody, directly, immediately. She can feel his intelligence, his way of seeing things so differently. He started painting, but it's beginning, you know, and you have to think that his first painting, who are going to become very famous after, they are getting refused of the salon, you know, the place where you can hanging art. They are refused, and his brothers, they don't really support him, saying, oh no, sorry, your painting is not gonna go in the independent salon, people don't get it. And so he's really like isolated. At that time, when he will be in New York, he will become this huge painter and this huge humanizer and crazy and so interesting, and you know, Fontaine that he made and everything. But for now, he's very shy. He's not seducing women. He's really in his corner, and Gabriële sees him. And what's interesting is that she sees him as, I want to talk with this mind. I want to, you know, to share with this brain. But she also sees this guy is gonna get along so well with Francis. Because Gabriële, she's never alone. She's always in a way with Francis, and Francis the same. Even when they're gonna get divorced and not being together anymore, they are always connected. You know, they call themselves tu sais, les flammes jumelles, comment ça les, in a way like soulmates, but they find a special way to say it. Even when they're not going to be together anymore, they just write letters to each other every day until one of them passed, and it will be Francis the first, but they will always be connected. And what she saw, to answer your question, to young Marcel, was, you know, he is going to fit so well with us, with the both of us. And it's what happened, actually, because they're starting, you know, at dinner, lunch, and living together and talking all the time and painting together all the time and living for, you know, trip in France and loving each other, the three of them. And so he became, you know, like really a part of the, it's as if a couple, it's a body, it's in itself. He was maybe one of the heart of the body of Gabriële and Francis. If it means something like not weird what I'm saying. I don't know in English. You see what I mean? Okay, that's good. So yeah, she saw that, and it's what happened.
Peut-être on peut expliquer l'histoire de l'armory show avec quand elle fait la traduction. Okay. Just a little story in the book, which is a true story. So you know the history of the armory show. Here in New York in 1913, a group of American art lovers decided to organize here in the USA, in New York, the most important exhibition of European modern art. So they invited all the main paintings from Europe to the USA. But at that time, of course, it was very expensive to come to New York. So the artists couldn't come for the opening night. The only two Europeans who came were Francis and Gabriële. And then the journalists had only two people to speak with. And the problem was that Francis couldn't say one word in English. So it was Gabriële, the translator, and also like the outspeaker for all the European stage. And at that time, they had their love triangle. And when journalists, because it was such an event, when journalists said, "What is the most important painter in France?" She said, "Oh, it's Marcel Duchamp, of course." But it was totally a lie. Marcel was a noun in France because the stars in France were his brothers. And so she said, "That's the guy you have to discover." And so all the journalists went to the room where all the painters of Marcel were settled. And Marcel became this famous superstar. And so the paintings of Marcel were sold. But in France, he was never sold. And so when Gabriële and Francis came back to France with the dollars, and when they say to Marcel, "That's what you won in the USA for your paintings," he couldn't believe it.
So I have a couple more questions before we open it up to audience questions. 2 years ago, I think maybe a year or two ago, this really fantastic collection of letters and poems has come out. Can you talk a little bit about this tiny little book that I have in my hand, which I'm so excited I got my hands on. I had an interlibrary loan it from Columbia University.
Okay, thank you, because it's so important. I took a picture to send to our editor because I wanted to show him this book is in New York. It's incredible. Yeah. So it's letters and poems that Francis wrote to Gabriële, and it was unpublished poems and letters because it was in the archives of our family, and our families that we rediscover thanks to the book, and our cousins that we didn't know and that we met thanks to the book. And so we found all these poems and letters. And what is so moving is that, so Gabriële and Francis were married and then they divorced, but they stay lovers forever. And all these letters were written after their separation, and that letters and poems Francis sent to Gabriële in the secret from his new wife, because she was much younger but jealous of Gabriële. And you can see how he needed him forever and until his death. And he's always asking, what do you think of that? I need your help to write about my new exhibition. And it's really moving and beautiful.
So my final question before opening up to the audience, what are you working on now?
It's a great moment and a little bit scary for both of us, because both of us, we have a book coming out very soon, and it's coming out in 4 months, and she's like right now making the final correction, and she will explain what is it about. And me, it's going out in 4 days, you know, in France. So when I come back in Paris from here, it will be my book out. And so it's a bit, you know, we are anxious, but very happy, of course. And my new book, it's non-fiction, and it's a long time I didn't do non-fiction because I'm more of a novelist. But it's a book about a big trial that happened in France, that maybe you heard about it because it was so big, it went way outside of France. It was this trial about this case of, you know, this woman, Gisèle Pellicot. Yeah, you heard about it, so it's terrible, okay, this story. And maybe so for people who didn't hear, it was a woman who has been raped by her husband, and more than 70 men unknown bring back her husband when she was completely sedated, like on drugs. So for years, for 10 years, terrible, terrible, terrible it was. But it was also a very, you know, full of hope trial, because this woman, Gisèle Pellicot, she stand and she asked the president of the court to make everything open. We said in French, lever le huis clos, which means completely open for public, for journalists. And I went to this trial to write articles, and it was so inspiring and so interesting in a philosophic matter that after the trial, I decided I can't just quit now. I need to write more about it. So I decided, but in a kind of fever, to write a book about it, because I went very, I had to go very fast, and I was completely into it. It's what happened, and the book is out like in a few days, and it's really important book for me. Maybe you have to ask my editor, maybe he's gonna buy it for translating in English.
Very good question. Yes.
So really, yeah. I kind of get that because, I mean, when I was in Avignon, the place where the trial was, there was so much journalists, and we become a little bit friends, all the journalists, and there was so much foreign journalists, like Spanish, German, English, American, and we understood it was becoming like a world case, which is really pretty, really good and interesting. And even though all the trial was it went well, and I think Gisèle Pellicot finds some peace at the end, but probably this case opens so much questions, so much matters, that it's the beginning of our questioning and reflection about all that. But it's good to know that you were aware, and you find that interesting, yeah.
Me, I keep on going on my journey, my literary journey about my family tree. And so I try to build how to explain? Each book is like a part of my family tree. So Gabriële was the first milestone. And then I wrote this book, The Postcard, about our Ashkenazi family. And the next book will be on our father's family, which is a completely different story. It's a story that takes place in Britain. That's an area in France. And it's a story about all the men of this family on over 4 generations. And so that's my work.
So now we'll open up to audience questions. If you have a question, raise your hand. We have microphones floating around. We'll take this one up here just when my colleague comes on up.
Hi, it's so lovely to hear about this happy collaboration. Not all collaborations work out well. I want to know how you work together, and did you ever disagree in any direction on how you were going to take the story?
Okay, I can tell you a little story, which she doesn't know what I'm gonna say.
Oh.
Okay, for example, what is it to be sisters? Sometimes over a very small details that nothing not important, we are going to be mad at each other, like screaming, wild screaming at each other. Like you can do that just with your sister. That's the first phase. We scream. Second phase, it's silence. We look at each other in silence. And the third phase, we're gonna say, "But I love you. No, I love you. No, I love you." And that's how we work, And it's always like that, and it's always ending like that, and that gives us strength, like we are really a team. But also it gave us this great way of being completely honest to each other. So and because together we don't have ego, we can say this, I don't think it's a good idea and stuff like that, and we're gonna laugh about it. It's not like, what, you don't think I'm a clever person? No, it's really easy, and it's this way it worked for our writing together. And probably we manage in the book to really intertwined together to be just one voice, one writing. It was not a piece one, a piece the other one, a chapter. We really like merged. And to merge that way, it has to be so much laughing, a little fights once in a while, a lot of I love you, all that to create this voice, this third voice between us. And we have so good memories of that, and we know we're gonna write another book, because it was a really peculiar, like a singular, I don't know how you say in English, way, and we learned so much about writing doing that. It was the best school. I am a better writer now because I did all that with Anne, and we can feel that it's such a strength.
Wait, hold on. Let's do one. We'll do back here and then up here.
What did your family make of this book? What did your family think of this book?
Our family was involved because we have to join our cousins, which we didn't know, to ask them a lot of questions. So they were involved and very happy, and they reread the manuscript because we wanted to be sure that we will not write mistakes. For our mother, it was a little bit different because she was not really happy about this book because she didn't like her grandmother, Gabriële, because Gabriële, in a way, abandoned her. But at the end, I should say that I think that her mother was pretty proud. At first, she was happy because as a mother, when you see your daughters working together, I think it's like a goal in your life. You can say, okay, that's
That's a success.
That's a success. And also the book has had a lot of success in France. So I think that my mother, at the end, she was proud.
I will say that as somebody who is also very close with your sister, I asked her in preparation for this, would you ever write a book with me? And she said, absolutely not. She's like, I don't think I could do it. Go ahead.
So what was the biggest change that you saw in Gabriële, both as a person and as a character, from World War I to the time that she was in the resistance?
Ah. Okay, interesting question. I will try to find the words. I think that Gabriële was a fighter. And when she broke the rules of art with Francis and Marcel, she thought that she was doing something important. And when she saw the men having parties, having fun, she thought, okay, they are like children, kids. For me, the important is the fight. And she was so engaged and political in that part of art history. So when she became a resistance fighter, it is the same line. It means we have to change the world. So it's not a twist in her life. It's something like une continuation,
Continuation.
a continuation. And that's true that during World War II, when she was fighting for the others and she could be killed, she could be sent to death camps because she was a resistance. At that time, Marcel was in the USA having fun as a big star, and Francis was in south of France with his new young wife, who was a babysitter of the kids. And he was not a collaborator, but he didn't do nothing to fight against Nazis. So Gabriële and her daughter, because Janine, the daughter, was really the founder of the resistance network, Gabriële, she was a fighter all her life.
I think we have time for 2 more questions. If anybody else has any. Don't be shy. Hey, have one in the back? Or okay, yeah, we're going to get you a mic. Go ahead.
Why did things not last between Marcel and why did not the 3 of them last? Including the divorce, I guess.
So what became their friendship with Marcel?
Well, they didn't stay as a triad.
Oh,
They
okay,
were a
okay,
triad,
sorry.
And the triad broke up. They got divorced, and Marcel moved away. And
Yeah, in a way, the triangle stayed forever because these 3 persons, they stay bound. I can give you few examples. At one point, so they were not all together anymore. Marcel was in the US for 4 years, Gabriële was in Switzerland, and Francis Picabia went to France and then met Gabriële in Switzerland. It was, end of World War I, the years around 1917. And Marcel, at that point, he has been in the US for years. He has become this huge star. He maybe had all the women in New York, and was partying and making this huge, statement in art, like Fontaine and so on. But at that time, it was also a huge play, to just break everything. It was on the top of the mountain, and at one point, he felt the needed to just get away of all that, to get away, to be alone, to stop, to be in silence. And he decided to go in South America just by himself, with no friends. And at that moment, so Gabriële and Francis went in Switzerland because Picabia, who was bipolar, even if it was not diagnosed, it didn't exist at that time, but he was bipolar and he had a very huge breakdown. So he was in some kind of, hospitals in Switzerland, a place where you can rest and all that stuff. Marcel, when he went in South America, he sent one letter to Gabriële and Francis. It was like, guys, I want to be alone. I don't want to see anybody except just the two of you, except you, Gabriële, and you, Francis. Maybe you should come and meet me in South America, and the three of us, we can be an island. We can create an island, just being the three of us. And we can see at that time, the love triangle was over for, for years. But the triangle is there. And it has been that way their entire life. And for example, when Marcel went back from America, North and South, like he went back in Europe, at that time, Picabia and Gabriële was in the middle of a separation, divorcing, even though Gabriële was pregnant of the first kid, which was our grandfather. And as soon as Marcel arrived, he went to live with Gabriële. And they were living together, but seeing Francis all the time. And the day Gabriële was, breaking water and delivering her first baby, who was there to help with all the mess? It was Marcel, He helped in her place to get the baby out. And he called Picabia and said, come, Francis, you have a new baby where you have to register his name at the mairie, So there was always like that. And one thing I find very moving, and I will stop here, is that when Picabia died, it was the first one of the three. He died in years 1953. And when Marcel, who was back in the US at that time, when Marcel heard the news, he just, sent a telegram, I don't know if he says that in English, a telegram to Francis, who has passed away, and he said, my dear friend, see you very soon. Yeah.
How are we doing on time? Okay, so unfortunately we're out of time.
It was ringing.
It was ringing. It was perfect. So thank you both for coming to see us on this very rainy Saturday afternoon. We have copies of the book still outside, and I don't know if you can stay for a little bit to sign copies.
Of course.
So we'll be right outside of this room. So go ahead and line up, and also purchase your copies if you have not already.
Thanks.